All right, so the chapter that I'm on right now is chapter 2, and it's about Black women and fertility and how is the system failing them. Hey, you guys. Happy Juma. Happy Friday to everybody. I want to take this time to talk to you guys about something super uber important. And I'm reading this book called Pregnant While Black. And I noticed something in this chapter that I want to talk to you guys about. I'm going to read this to you guys a little bit on what it's talking about, and I want you guys to give me your thoughts about this. Emma White had been seeing Dr. Frank, her obstetrician gynecologist, for the past few years for her routine pap smear, but this time her request was different. Emma held a leadership position at a local university. She met Anthony, her husband, about a year and a half before. They discussed their shared desire to have children early in their relationship, and though during their first year of intimacy, they did nothing to prevent pregnancy. Their attempts moved into high gear during the first few months after their wedding. She had been tracking her periods since they had sometimes been irregular, using ovulation predictor kits, which she had learned about because of the openness of some of her white girlfriends who had fertility struggles. She and her husband, who is Emma, and Anthony, her husband, paid particular attention to the timing of intercourse, detail oriented and research minded by nature. She was aware of the possible difficulties she could have in achieving pregnancy as she approached her 37th birthday. And typically, when you get pregnant around that age, which I did as well, when I got pregnant with Simone, who's 9 now, I was 35 when I had her. So I was already considered a high risk pregnancy just because of my age. Not because there was anything wrong with me health wise, but specifically because of my age, I was considered a high risk pregnant. Back to the story. So she was 37, right? But Dr. Frank heard none of her concerns. She disregarded Emma's empathetic plea for help. She dismissed all of her efforts and research. It's because you're stressed out. Just relax and enjoy it, her doctor says. I know my body, Emma insisted. Oh, you're still young. You just got married. Just keep trying. Emma was devastated. She was devastated. The trauma of that visit has remained with her for years, especially because of everything that followed. All right, so stick with me because I'm going to talk to you guys about some information that I discovered in this book, and I want to talk to you guys more about what I found. The definition of infertility is 1 year or a couple having unprotected sex. So 1 year of unprotected sex and still not being able to conceive. That is the definition of infertility. Obstetricians and gynecologists are usually taught to intervene after 6 months for women 35 and over, since fertility is known to decline with age, and thus taking too long to intervene when a woman is older could jeopardize her chances of a successful intervention. Data from the National Survey of Family Growth has shown that there was a downward trend in fertility from 8.5% to 7.4% among married women in America between 1982 and 2002. The gains in fertility were most evident for women between the ages of 35 and 44. However, when this data was examined by race, the results told a different story. However, when this data was examined by race, it was told a different story. for married white women, the infertility rates improved from 11.6% to 7.1%. Married black women were not so lucky. Their infertility rate increased from 7.8% to 11.6%. So you see how the tables turn? It flipped. The authors of the survey explained the overall improved fertility rates by the fact that women were potentially starting medical fertility treatment sooner. However, while they noted that a disparity existed for Black women, they did not offer any explanation. Why is that? Building on those findings, another group of researchers decided to evaluate any differences in the fertility between Black and white women, including both married and unmarried, in the US, right? In 4 of the US cities. Reinforcing the disparity we saw in the other study, Black women were twice as likely to experience infertility when compared to white women. The study also found that Black women who had acknowledged having difficulty paying for the basics had a higher risk of infertility, independent of whether or not they had health insurance. Do you guys hear that? I'm going to say it again. The study also found that Black women who had acknowledged having difficulty paying, right, had difficulty paying for the basics, had a higher risk of infertility, independent of whether or not they had health insurance. Is it because it's mad expensive? The researchers also found that Black women who had larger ovaries on ultrasound had a higher likelihood of being infertile. This relationship was not observed among white women. Why? Why wasn't it observed among white women? Because they have better healthcare access, because they have a higher chance of receiving, the healthcare that they need, because we know the disparities between, the gap in between how much we're getting paid, a white person versus a Black person, whether you're a man or a woman, is significantly lower when you are a melanated person in America. Authors noted that large ovaries could be associated with ovarian cyst or other ovarian tissue, and acknowledged that this finding warranted further scientific investigation. While this study did find that Black women were more likely to have fibroids than white women, the presence of fibroids seemed to have a similar impact on the fertility of both Black and white women. Again, while this study did find that Black women were more likely to have fibroids than white women, the presence of fibroids seemed to have a similar impact on the fertility of both Black and white women. I mentioned in the last chapter some of the evidence which shows that disparities are not related to the intrinsic genetic makeup of Black women, right? Because it's epigenetic. We'll talk about that in another video. Another study backs this up. In 2021, a group of researchers from well-respected medical institutions in the Northeast specifically evaluated the influence on the ethnicity of Black patients on their diagnosis of infertility. Specifically, they looked at Black American, Black Haitian, Black African, and white American women who sought infertility care at the Boston Medical Center between January 2005 and July 2015. Black or white race was self-identified, and ethnicity was determined by the place of birth and primary language. So basically, whether you're African, Haitian, or Black American, on the paper, you're going to put that you're black. That's why they said it's self-identified. But their ethnicity is different. You have American, you have Haitian, you have African. Okay? The researchers excluded ethnicity. The researchers excluded ethnically Haitian women who were born in the United States. Black and white American women had their infertility diagnosed at a similar age, but the black women of the other ethnicities were older. So, not the black American, but the Haitian woman and the African woman specifically. Black women had higher body mass indexes, a maker of obesity, with the highest BMIs in Black American women. It's what we're eating in this country. You guys, we have to eat better foods. Why? Why is epigenetics so important? And why is this research like, it's centered around infertility? Is because of what we've been eating, what we grew up eating, what our great grandma, our grandma, our mom was eating, and all that food that we consider soul food. Y'all, that food, some of that food is not good. It's not good for our bodies. It's not good for our blood type. It's not good for melanated people. We need to be more alkaline, right? Okay, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Black African women were more likely to be married than any other group, even including white women, and Black American women were the least likely to be married. What's going on with that picture? That's a whole word. African women are more likely to be married. It's because that's what they're trained to do. I don't know how to say it in any other way than trained. Like, that's embedded in them to have a husband. And not to say that it is not something that Black American women aspire to. We used to. But now every Black woman wants to be independent, have her own bag, do her own thing, independent of a man. Who needs a man? Like, that's crazy. Black women, even if they were Black American, were more likely to be uninsured or on Medicaid. Y'all, insurance is expensive as hell. So if you can't pay for your own insurance, you'll be on Medicaid. But if you don't qualify for Medicaid, like a lot of us Black women do not qualify for Medicaid. Our children qualify for Medicaid if we're working. We have a full-time job. We have a good job. Even if it's like a 15-hour salary job, most likely you're not going to be qualified for Medicaid. Your kids will be qualified for Medicaid, but the Black woman will not. They will tell you that you make too much money and you will be uninsured. And on our jobs, the medical insurance through our jobs can be very expensive as well. Thus, Black women in America are opting out of getting health insurance through their jobs because they want more money on their paychecks so that they can take care of their bills, especially if they're unmarried. You guys hear that? Especially if they're not married. Which they're saying most of the Black women in America are not married. This is crazy, y'all. So it says, Black women, even if they were Black American, were more likely to be uninsured or on Medicaid compared to white American women. Now, they're not saying if white American women are on Medicaid, but they're saying that Black women are more likely to be uninsured or on Medicaid than white women. 45.5% and 13.6% respectively. So I'm assuming that 45.5% is uninsured and 13.6% is on Medicaid. Fascinatingly, while there were certainly differences between Black Americans and white Americans, according to the authors of the study, these two groups had more similar baseline characteristics, age, and whether they had prior children. So those are the two, differences. Those are the two similarities, age and whether they had children, prior children, than Black American women had with Black women of the other two ethnicities. So Black women in America have more in common than white American women than Black Americans do with Haitians and Africans. These similarities were also noted in the types of infertility diagnosis they were given. I believe this speaks of the role of the environment rather than baseline genetic makeup, unless we think that Black American women genetically resemble white American women more than they resemble Black women from the continent of Africa or the country of Haiti. Either way we look at it, I believe it reinforces the point that most of the health disparities experienced by Black women in America are based on the multiple negative consequences they are forced to endure because of only one genetic factor: expressions of melanin in their skin tone.